Philadelphia has the ability to be a world-class city. And we have two questions for you. One, if you become mayor, what is your vision for creating a world-class education system? And the second, can you provide specifics by what are the top three things you would do to make sure that that vision comes true?
So if we look out like 10 years, for example, we don't have to start with a plan that is based in reality. It's aspirational, but we look at the best systems around the world. And there are some excellent public education systems in various cities and countries that we could emulate. First, there has to be meaningful education, both in terms of what the child experiences as they grow up and develop to be a thinking person, to understand the world around them, and to have the skills and abilities to be employed and to be an entrepreneur, to go in their own direction. The school would be, we'd have to have teachers who are fulfilled in what the meaning of being a teacher is to them. They have to have the ability to teach and have the freedom to teach, have the autonomy to teach within a system where managing the school is left to the administrators, teaching is left to the teachers, and we want to have the level of facilities, building, curriculum, resources that is commensurate with a world-class education system. I think we can do it. We're not an overly large city that requires a lot of investment, but I think the investment, one, involves what most excellent education systems have, is some direction or pathway for the student themselves. Who do they want to be? And how do you tap into that? In other words, a certain percentage, usually about 30%, want to go to college. 70% don't. They want to be something else. And we have to encourage them in what they want to be. They may want to be an architect, but they might want to be a musician. They might want to be in the creative arts economy, or they may want to be in construction. Whatever it is, we have to give them the tools and the skills that make them happy, make them satisfied, and then when they can achieve, they have other options. So the buildings have to be brought up to standard. In other words, they have to be buildings that are suitable, provide the right atmosphere, the right resources, and especially the correct technology. The teachers' salaries have to be increased. And I'm not saying because there's teachers here. It's just when you look at where we are as a city and as a country, when you compare it to the best education systems in the world, we are low paying. We have to bring up the salaries. We have to bring up the expectation. We have to provide predictable steps that the more experience you have, the increase in your salary, so you look forward to a meaningful career. I would throw in there the Swiss and German model of VET, vocational educational training, which provides students a pathway to study mathematics and other relevant topics to getting a certification in a specific area of a career. And then the part of it is that 9th and 10th grade they're studying, but 10th and 11th grade they go into the workforce. The workforce, however, is commensurate with their certificate going to places which cannot be duplicated in a public school system like Boeing or Merck or Augusta Aerospace, where they work with top-level technology professionals and they get paid the appropriate salary. So in those countries, the industry pays for that because they want to develop a workforce. And so in Germany, the last time I saw, the industry pays about $5 billion towards that education system. So I think we could look at the modern buildings, the opportunities, and then a pathway into meaningful jobs that young people really want to do, and then to throw in there the great upside economic engine of creative arts economy.
So David, let me just do one question and then I'm going to turn it over to Aaliyah. So I'm going to switch a little bit. You've differentiated yourself from your colleagues by talking about an elected school board. In 30 seconds, why do you think an elected school board would improve governance?
Our school board has continuously failed this city. Not just this school board, the previous. You can go decades back. You can look at the disparity in education, which is illegal and unconstitutional. It's not something that cannot be solved. It just isn't solved. And therefore, whatever the mayor, whatever that person does that they believe is the best, they leave. and another person comes in. And so I think you shouldn't have a system where an individual simply appoints who they like. I think what happens is the mayor can appoint four excellent people who may not want to get engaged in elective politics, which can be pretty nasty, and then divide the city into 5 zones and let each of the residents there elect someone to represent them, because that person has to go in front of them to understand what the community needs. They would be on the overall school board, but there you have an ability for people to get what is missing from our school board, that is responsiveness, accountability, and transparency. People want to know, where's the money? How come our schools look so different? Why don't we have resources? How come this school has an orchestra? How come we don't? How come these teachers have supplies? How come these teachers don't? And by the way, for everyone who puts their money into our school system, like parents bringing supplies, like teachers reaching in their pocket, it's unrecorded. There's nowhere in our school system that we record all those contributions. So there's a lot of problems, and there's no adequate reimbursement process. And by the way, I did put in a reimbursement bill using $10 million of tobacco settlement that we were going to lose anyway. I had a hearing, and it would have been managed by retired teachers, and my bill was defeated. Like many bills are defeated that I try to do, but I don't think these are very difficult things. $10 million, you're going to lose it, tobacco settlement, create a process. Teachers pay like $1,200, sometimes $3,000 for required school items. These are not optional things. There's no way to submit that and get a reimbursement. Therefore, I, as a council person, and the rest of government does not know exactly what is missing in our schools. And if we could find the schools where people keep doing that, those are the unresourced schools that we have to identify and target.
Okay, thank you. Elaine?
Thank you.
So part of what you just discussed was this teacher fulfillment. And teachers are leaving schools, citing a lack of resource. They're burning out because of the highly impacted students with trauma. How do you tell to our teachers in the audience and those who are watching, what do you do to help with teacher fulfillment, as you said? How do you make that happen?
Well, it is part of a holistic solution. The reason there's so much trauma and problem is because there aren't jobs. There's such disparity. A lot of students that the teachers are dealing with, they know that they are treated with neglect. They know that they're treated like they don't matter. They have been through this for decades. And they're rebellious and they're angry, and the more they get social media, the more they know about these things, and they gather together. We have to do things right away that are visible. First is we have to make them safe. There's no more neglectful, hurtful thing for people, whether you're an adult or whether you're a child, to know that nobody cares about your safety, that you could be suffering violence and pain and your life could be in danger, and nobody's there to answer your call. That is abusive. So, one, we have to respond right away. And we put them in the schools, too. In other words, no teacher should be afraid to walk from their car to the school and from the school back to their car. They should not be afraid about what's the consequence of angry students in the classroom. They should not be concerned about what happens if they interrupt the fight and the Department of Human Services, puts them in a rubber room and all that kind of stuff. There has to be like a common sense thing. There has to be policies that are understandable. People need to know what their job is. And so, I think the first thing is we have to visibly make people safe. Then we have to clean up these communities that are the areas of violence and neglect. And then we have to put things into the hands of the young people in particular, but also seniors, so they can see that this is not what we're normally doing. We are doing things with care.
So let me just stop you just to say, you're talking about the things. So give me 2 concrete things to put into the system to make it work better.
So, for example, in the schools, we have to immediately put in technology, resources, and devices so that the young people can use. We have to supply them with the athletic equipment and things that they want. And when I say what they want, not what I want, I think when I think about what I want, it might be a basketball court. Maybe for them, it's a row of cubicles with devices or whatever you call them, like rows of where they get onto the things that they want. I think also They have to have the things that they love, like filmmaking and fashion and music production type of opportunities. And I think those are things we can deliver where we don't talk about like in 5 years. Like you could get that right away as we deal with the other problems that are structural and will take time.
So I'm going to pivot us to a line of questioning around higher education specifically. So in Center City, Philadelphia, 3 out of 4 residents have a college degree. But on the outer edges of the city, where many Black and brown residents have suffered from years of persistent economic disinvestment, intergenerational poverty, educational attainment rates have been below 25%. So as mayor, what strategies would you implement or support to ensure that more residents beyond Center City have equitable access to Philadelphia's post-secondary institutions?
So first, we have to make the schools equitable in facility, curriculum, resources, and technology, and give the young people the pathway they need. In order to do that, you have to change the governance structure. You have to empower the teachers. You have to separate the management. Then, looking at the pathway they're going to go. If they're going to go into a career, if they're going to go into the arts, if they're going to go to college, they have to have like practical pathways. And the better they do in their pathway, the more likely they're going to succeed and the happier they're going to be. Having industry, whether it's the music industry or the construction industry or the science industry involved with the students, not in a charitable way, it's part of what they do to develop the workforce. It's one of the reasons we can't bring employers and investment to the city. We have upper level people, we have mid-management people. Where we are lacking in terms of bringing employers here is in the entry-level, workers. And so there's a lot of opportunity for that. And I think that one of the things we can do, because we are talking about community college, and I'll just say, I was on the board of community college. I was on the board of Nazareth Academy High School for Girls, and I was on the board of Hahnemann University. So at different levels, I do understand something about, not education itself, I'm not a teacher, but just kind of the parameters of it. Community college is supposed to be a quality education that is affordable. It has to be sustainable and predictable. In order to do that, you have to have the city follow the law. It's as simple as that. There's nothing more fantastic than that. We are not going to be able to provide community college for free. We're not going to be able to do that for a sustainable amount of time. The students pay about 54% of the tuition. By the design, they're only supposed to pay 33%. The city is only paying 20%, and it's supposed to pay a lot more. And so right now what happens is this budget is probably somewhere around $135 million per year, give or take, and it's underfunded. And the city has shortchanged this institution, probably like $300 million over the past umpteen years. That's why it is not providing the type of education it could and should, and the teachers' instructions are not receiving the kind of salaries that they should.
So how would you ensure that the community college does get the funding that you're saying it needs?
So I would follow the law. Like, in other words, I find this all to be a violation of the law. The state is supposed to put a third in, but because they don't, they change the law to say whatever they don't put in, the city puts in. But the city should put at least a third in and reduce the tuition to 1/3, and then there are scholarships and other opportunities. But the big opportunity is, again, to tie in workforce that will invest money into community college to develop the workers that they need. It is profitable for them to do that. And we have remedial education, which a lot of community college folks know about. You have people come in, you have to do some remedial education. Once they hit their levels, they're employable, and it is so expensive for employers to start bringing people in from Ohio, Maryland, or not to build their facilities here. And we solve so many problems when we do that, and we can get buy-in from them. So it's not like it isn't done. It is done. It's just we don't do it here.
Sure, thank you. And so just mindful of time, being mindful as well about the economic impact that COVID-19 had on many neighborhoods across the city, can you talk about what role you see the Community College of Philadelphia playing in the revitalization of many of our neighborhoods and how you would support those efforts as mayor?
So we need a workforce, we need a skilled workforce, we need entrepreneurs, and we need innovation. The primary thing that we need to have in this city is intellectual property, which is innovation, creativity, arts, and that type of thing. And to provide that entry-level workforce to skilled work and to other things, the education and training and certification and degree-bearing process is so important. So from our high schools to our colleges, to community college, we have so much workforce that is needed, but our city does not focus on developing the economy and drawing in the employers that we need, which we must have in order to be globally competitive.
Thank you, Mr. O.
30 seconds, final thoughts.
This election will not end on May 16th because it'll go to November 7th. In the last 20 years, it hasn't, because there hasn't been a credible Republican candidate. My contribution to this situation is we will go to November 7th. That's important because we've elected people based on 90-second answers. It is a sprint from the time people pay attention to the race to May 16th, and then you get someone who gave kind of like very brief answers without really delving into what they've actually done compared to what they said they've done. So I think it's important to stay tuned, stay engaged. We're going to draw this out. We're going to go with much, much more detail, and we're going to come to some real answers and some real challenges about what people say they are doing, what they could have done, what they didn't do. And I think that's so important for people to make a real choice, because we cannot continue this way. Most of our problems are simply violating the law, violating the Constitution, and not doing what we're supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please join me in welcoming and thanking David O.